Alright, here we go. So playing some tier limits and I'm about to cook. Now I do make one kind of misplay. I got a little trigger happy. And it involves the tier limit scream right here. Now, next time I won't make this mistake, but it's not that big of a mistake, but it is somewhat a mistake. So this is where it happens right here. Now, if you're ever playing tier limits and you decide to do this, you can chain block this if you want to, but you don't have to do this. The reason I'm doing it is because I just was either trigger happy or I was trying to chain block this. I activate my scream. I shouldn't have done this. I should have just activated the Kid Kalos right here. Once I activate the Kid Kalos, what that would do, not activate the scream on this particular part. That would have allowed me to add Merly to my hand and then swap this out for Merly and mill 11 cards all at one time. That way, by doing that, when I do start hitting the fusion summoners, this will be in the graveyard, and then I can go into Rule Kalos, make plays, and not have to bring this back out to get the mill 5. I would be able to mill deep into my deck, because basically I'm wasting one of my fusion summons right here. So I go into Rule Kalos, grab these two cards to grab the field spell, activate the field spell, grab Rhino Heart, normal Rhino Heart, sending the Merly, activate Merly, and then fusion summon right back into Kikalos. And then since Merly is already in my hand, I'm going to go into Abyss Dweller, activate Kikalos to summon Merly onto the field. So basically I just wasted one of my fusion summons, and at this point now I'm milling for nothing. So I'm going to mill, activate the Abyss Dweller right here. So then that way if my opponents do hit anything special, it will not matter. They're under Abyss Dweller, so none of the graveyard effects will be able to activate. Then I'm going to activate my Sheeran, grabbing the Tier Limits Crime. Now Tier Limits Crime is very powerful. There are some people that don't even run this card, they just run the Sulliek Trap, but I love the Tier Limits Crime, and I'll show you guys why. Now, what does our board consist of? I like to do this because that way people understand what we can do. So we got Keldo in the graveyard, Exchange of Spirits in my graveyard, Fairy Tale Snow is in my graveyard, and we also have Rainbow Bridge of Salvation in my graveyard, plus the Merly. So all of those cards are relevant to any tier limits board. They're always relevant to the board. Also, Kid Kalos is kind of relevant to the board in case I need to go into Rule Kalos as a fusion summon again if this card gets sent back to the deck for whatever reason. Or if I need to go into Dragos Stapelia or anything like that, I have a fusion summon monster in my graveyard, right? Shuffler in my graveyard can shuffle back 5, and if you're wondering why am I saying 5, well, 5 because if Exchange of Spirit is in the graveyard, here it is. If Exchange of Spirit is in the graveyard, you can target 5 cards instead of 3. And I got 2 Exchange of Spirits in my graveyard. Also, if Exchange of Spirit is in the graveyard, I can activate Gravekeeper's Trap. They can't special summon or use their graveyard. So that's another thing. The crime, the way that this card activates, I need to have something in my hand to be able to negate something. If I can't do that, I can't omni negate whatever it is. So that's something big about this card. You have to remember that. And of course, there are ways of getting tier limits monsters or cards into your hand even if you don't have one. And I'm about to showcase exactly how to do that. All you have to do, the solution to everything tier limits is just mill. Mill. The more you mill, the more chance you got of actually getting a card into your hand. So I'll show y'all that. We got the Scream right here, that'll mill 3. Rule Kalos can basically send itself while special summoning and negating something. Sprite Elf can also revive back a monster that can start milling, which is the Merly, which is why I said Merly is relevant. Yeah, bunch of different effects here. So let's see. So the first thing I'm going to do is flip over my Gravekeeper's Trap, activate the Abyss Dweller. Their graveyard is turned off regardless of if my Gravekeeper's Trap leaves the field or not. And then we're going to mill 6 cards right here. We only got 16 cards in the deck. And then I activate Havness, and then there it is right there, folks. Shaddoll Beast will give me the card that I need. Then we're also going to activate Elgato plus the Kelbeck. And then I activate my Shuffler because I only have 10 cards in my graveyard. So I put back some of the cards that can get me effects if they get sent to the grave. There we go. And then I draw 1 card, so I draw into the Diviner, the 1 Diviner that I do have. And then I go into Mud Dragon of the Swamp. Now the reason why I go into Mud Dragon of the Swamp is because, as y'all can see, we're in turn 2, main phase 1, which means this motherfucker did not summon anything. He did not activate any traps. He didn't do anything, which means he is attempting to leave main phase 1 and go to the battle phase. That tells me that he is going to play evenly matched. So I needed to get this card into my hand. It didn't matter what this card is, as long as I got something in my hand to discard with the Tearlimi's Crime. That's 1 Omni Negate right there. So I go ahead and go into Kaleido Heart. And there it is, folks. The evenly matched that I was just talking about. At the end of the battle phase, if your opponents control more cards than you do, you can make your opponents banish cards from their field, so face down, so that they control the same number of cards you do. Now, basically, if they have multiple of copies of this in their hand, you're kind of fucked. Because you're going to need a Baronne de Fleur negate as well to negate the second one. And then if they have a third one, well, your board is toast. But I have played through an evenly match before. And that is why, if you all noticed, I milled a shit ton of their cards. So with one of my Elgatos, I actually didn't mill an additional 5 out of my own deck. I milled the additional 5 out of his deck. So then that way, he only has 9 cards left in his deck. What that does is it absolutely destroys the consistency in his deck. Look how little of engine he actually has. He has to have a small engine here with these Subterror cards because he only has a few of them in his deck. And the majority of his cards are all pretty much hand traps and other traps and shit like that. So, by me actually sending all this shit to over here, I'm pretty sure the consistency of his deck is fucked. Activate Crime to negate this, and then I'm just going to send the Diviner using the crime's effect. There it is right there. I needed that discard for that to work, and then of course my opponent just scoops it up. So GG's, my boy. He has to hold that L forever. And I just showed y'all how to play around evenly match, how to pretty much build a board that was just like, what was he really going to do? I mean, if he summons a monster, he can't use his graveyard. I got 2 cards on the field that stop you from being able to use your graveyard. No graveyard from the Gravekeeper's Trap. Abyss Dweller turns off his graveyard. I can pop a card on his side of the field with the field spell at any time pretty much. This card was just a placeholder in case I did get hit with evenly match. I wouldn't waste up like a Draco Stapelia or a Kid Kolos or something like that. Rule Kolos was basically a special summon negate. The Merly is just something that I summoned to try to get some meals going with the Sprite Elf. So then that way I can draw that card, which it worked. The Kaleido Heart, if he summons a monster and I end up sending something to the graveyard for whatever reason in some kind of way, which there are multiple ways to do that with this particular deck, especially with the Sulliek. If I were to just use Sulliek's effect, I could send something to the grave. Well, that would then trigger off the Kaleido Heart to be able to send it back to his deck. Then we had the Gravekeeper's Trap, of course, the Scream. So then I would start milling the second he puts a monster on the field. We also had the Imperm plus the Sullied. So yeah, he was not about to be able to do anything because I had way too many things. Like my deck, if you look at the field, it's completely crammed. It was completely crammed. There wasn't a space on the field to do anything. From the field spell all the way over to the Kaleido Heart. That's 5 monsters across here, one in the extra monster zone protecting 2 of the more important ones. And then we have 5 spells and traps going all the way across the back. That's a lot of shit to play through, and all of it has some form of relevancy to being able to make plays. If I needed to send something with the Rule Kalos as a special summon negate, I could literally send the Merly and then fusion summon, a guaranteed fusion summon on my opponent's turn if they attempt to special summon something. So yeah, bunch of shit going on right there. GG's, my boys. Hopefully y'all enjoyed this video. Peace.